Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a minute. It's nice to see you again. Today I'm going to be making a full video answering the question which I get most often, which as you can probably guess is, how do I get into acting? How do you do it? What's the secret? So I thought that because I get asked this question all the time on Instagram Q&As, in direct messages, in YouTube comments, I thought that what I would do is just make a video combining every single tip I can possibly think of. So I've made a list, and it's a very, very long list because there is a lot to say. I did put a post out last night just asking for specific questions, so I'm going to blaze through these tips and then I'm going to answer some of your specific questions regarding things under the umbrella of how to get into acting. I hope that you find this helpful. So we are starting with possibly the most important tip which I give to every single person who ever asked me this question, which is get an agent. In my opinion, you don't have to have one, but in my personal opinion, the way that I've done it, an agent is the key to getting jobs. They basically get sent everything that's happening at the moment, whether it's a new project, something in so they'll get all the information and then they'll email it across to you, and it's just a much easier way of going about the whole thing, so I would definitely recommend it. Now I know it's not just an easy thing where you just click your fingers and you've got an agent, so I also want to talk about how to get an agent. The key thing that will help you get an agent is having experience. You don't have an agent, how can you get experience? And you need experience to get an agent, so I totally get it, it's confusing. There are people who don't have agents and just decide not to have them and they manage. How you do that is through open calls. I would really encourage you to get Twitter, because honestly the majority of open calls that I've seen have been on there. I would definitely recommend that you follow agents because sometimes they post open calls. All the big casting directors, honestly, if you find one and then just go through his following list on Twitter, just follow every single one of them. Keep an eye out on what they post, because there's always open castings floating around, so I definitely recommend looking out for open castings, applying for any of them that fit your brief at all, so you can build up that basis of experience, and then once you've got that, agents will start looking at you and thinking, okay, we can represent this person. Help out with student projects. I have done that so many times, I can't even count. They are a really fantastic way to get some material for your show reel, which I'll talk about in a minute. Just generally to like get some experience being on a set. Be open to doing whatever jobs come your way, because honestly at the very beginning that is what you need to do. As soon as you have an agent, make sure you get on Spotlight. I think that is pretty much a given if you have an agent at all. Spotlight is essentially the big like hub of casting. The big jobs come through to your agent, and that's where they will be able to put you forward for things. That is probably the most important website for casting, full stop. I'll talk about some other ones later, but that is one of the most important ones. I believe you do need an agent to get on there. I mentioned earlier, get on Twitter. Just generally using your social media to follow people in the industry who will have opportunities available to you. Honestly, it's a really good way to network, and an easy way as well. I'm going to talk about workshops in a minute, but if you're not in an area that has lots of workshops available, follow casting directors on Instagram and Twitter, email them if you've got any information about upcoming projects that you're in, all that sort of thing. Workshops. So a lot of agencies and like places that have acting classes run workshops with casting directors, writers, loads of different people who are high profile in the industry. I would definitely recommend heading along to some of those if you possibly can. I know they're not cheap, but they're definitely worth it. They're just a really good opportunity to meet people. You get the opportunity to act in front of them. They'll give you some feedback. You can give them your CV, and then they might possibly call you back for future jobs. I met the casting director Jane Anderson at a workshop a couple of months before I had my audition for Creeped Out, and she called me in for it. So if you can get to some of those, I would highly recommend it. There's probably more in like the London area, but I live in Leeds and I've managed to get to some before. So possibly one of the most important tips I have is always keep your acting classes going. Don't stop training. There is always more to learn. Don't give up on it, even if it does seem a bit like you're getting nowhere. It's so important that you just keep learning, keep training. I can't emphasize that enough. I also wanted to mention, with building a CV, show reels and all of that kind of thing. Obviously you have an acting CV which lists all of the jobs that you've done. You also might have something called a show reel. Mine is on my YouTube channel if you want to go check it out. A little short, usually it's like 2-3 minute video with clips from the jobs that you've recently done, agents and casting directors I suppose. can look at that and think, okay, let's have a quick look at an overview of what this person has done. If you don't have any material for your showreel, there are lots of different places that run showreel classes and like days where you can essentially just read bits of script, have it filmed professionally, and then you can use that as material for your showreel. It's definitely worth doing if you don't have any other material for it, because they are really important. If you've got a few different character types in there as well, perfect, just show off everything you can do. If you've got any skills that you think might make you stand out, if you can horse ride, if you can play the flute, if you're sporty, if you can dance, anything like that, put it on your showreel. I've literally got skipping on mine as a skill, and the more you have that makes you stand out, the better. I also wanted to say it's important to have a variety of accents. I think there are 3 important ones which I would say you probably should have. So you have your regional accent, which for me is my Yorkshire accent. So essentially I speak like this. That is my normal accent. An RP accent is also really important, which is kind of the way that I speak now, like a very bog standard British accent. Bath, path, grass, all that kind of thing. Standard American, if you can just pick it up from watching TV shows and stuff like that. Just a bog standard American accent. I also very briefly wanted to mention some other websites which you might be able to find open castings on. One is Mandy. I would say I don't think it's the most valuable website that I personally use for getting open castings. I have had one job from it, but it wasn't an acting job actually. It was when I did the body form campaign. There is also stuff like that on there, so yeah, I recommend Backstage. They've got tons and tons of pages that you can just trawl through. So that concludes my general section about acting. So I also want to talk a bit about auditions. I receive a lot of messages about auditions as well, asking how to go about them, how they work, all that kind of thing. My number 1 tip for these, and it might seem minor, but trust me, always, always, always clarify with your agent. If it's coming through your agent, just clarify with someone if you need to be off book. Off book means that you have learnt the lines off by heart, you don't need the script. Make sure you know if you have to. Please make sure that you know one way or the other if you have to or you don't have to, because you really don't want to be in that awkward position. Oh my god, should I have learnt the lines? I haven't learnt the lines. Just find out either way before you go. Auditions can and will be last minute. If you have a job or you're at school, you need to make sure that somebody who works with you or like your teachers are aware. Usually they give you a few days notice, but I have had less than 12 hours notice before. I know it's not easy. I'm quite lucky in that my teachers are really fine about it. I'd recommend if you're at school, keep in contact with your teachers all the time if you're doing a job. Keep on top of schoolwork as best you can, because if they know that you're a hard worker and you will stay on top of your work, they're much more likely to let you leave to do other jobs in the future. Be prepared to jump on trains and buses and drive for 4 hours to God knows where. In terms of actually being in the audition, be open, be friendly, be polite, don't be shy, make conversation, ask them how their day was. You've just got to go in there, make eye contact, shake their hand, just be really friendly. I also wanted to give a brief mention to self-tapes, because I had a couple of questions about those. You will essentially get sent a script and you will have to perform the script and record yourself and send them a tape. If they like you, they might call you in for another self-tape or to meet them in person. Sometimes you might get asked to do some other odd things in a self-tape. It really depends on what job you're doing, but that's the general format of them. Do it as many times as you want, film it, make sure it's the best cut. That's all the tips I have for auditions. They are uncomfortable and difficult and hard to get used to. I think you just sort of have to go in with an open mind. You probably will mess a few of them up. It's fine, everyone does, especially when you're just learning. I still do it and I've been at this for 9 years. 9 years now. So honestly, just don't worry about it. Just go in, be friendly, be nice. That brings me on to my mental health section. I wanted to cover this because I know that acting is a very hard job to be doing. I'm very thankful that at present I am not relying on it for my income, but it's stressful enough anyway, so I wanted to give you some tips on how to sort of manage the stress and the anxiety and the sadness that comes with acting. For acting, you have to have a thick skin. I understand that it's not easy at the start, but it is something that you will just develop as you carry on. It's really easy to get attached to parts that you want and that you think you'd be really good for, and like imagine how it would be to be on set with all these people. I totally get it. I'm a Pisces, I'm imaginative, I understand. Please try not to. You will lose out on 100 times more jobs than you will end up getting, and that's normal and okay. Do everything you're doing with a positive mindset. If you go in there at the beginning thinking there's no way I'm going to get this, it's too big, or I'm just not right for this part, you've already set yourself up for failure. I know you've got to have a balance between being realistic and being optimistic, but also if you go in thinking there's no way that you're going to get it, you're definitely not going to get it. You have to go in there knowing that you're absolutely capable of getting the job. You wouldn't have been called in if you weren't. Positive thinking, optimism just makes it all the more comfortable for you. You feel less nervous, you feel much more calm, you won't forget lines. Try your best to forget about auditions as soon as you've been in. It's easy to just be like, overthink every single thing that you did in there, move on to the next one, focus on something else, go and get a Nando's, do something. At least if you've forgotten about it and then you get the job, it's a nice surprise. You don't want to be the other way around. Please try not to get disheartened. I know some people are very lucky and they just get the first job that they ever auditioned for, and it's a huge, huge job, but for the vast majority it takes years. I started acting when I was 8. My first major job was in Creeped Out on CBBC, and that was when I was 14. So it took 6 years for me to get my first major job. It's fine, it's normal. There are thousands of reasons why you didn't get a job, and 99% of the time it's nothing to do with your talent. You could be the sister or the brother of somebody else who's already been cast and you have to look similar. It is abnormal for you to hear back after an audition. 99% of the time you just won't hear anything if you haven't got the job. There is a movement at the moment called the yes or no movement in the acting industry where people are campaigning to get a no after auditions. As much as it is great, it is still out of the ordinary to get a no. You have to be prepared for radio silence because that is what you get most of the time. Doesn't mean they hate you, doesn't mean you were awful, it's just the way it works. That concludes all of my acting tips that I can think of. So now I'm going to get on to answering some of your questions that you sent me on Instagram. Okay, so a few of these I've kind of already answered. Someone has asked me, what's a great place to start? Love you. Love you too. If you mean a physical place to start, I will always recommend the place that I started out doing TV acting, which was YAFTA, the Yorkshire Academy of Film and Television Acting. They do have an agent. They also do acting classes, which I still go to and I absolutely love them. I get a lot out of them. Been there for about 5 years now and I absolutely love it, so I definitely recommend that. If you just mean a good place to start, generally, Twitter, open calls. How to get work with no experience, again, open calls. A lot of them will say on them, no experience required. Honestly, there are way more than you think. That's not the be all and end all. There could be a million people out there who are incredibly talented. Sometimes they just have to take a chance on you. Tips on preparing for auditions. Even if they tell you it's not off book, read the script so many times that you're so familiar with it. Don't be looking down all the time, so make sure that you know it reasonably well so that you can look up. It depends on kind of your style, I suppose. I know some people really like to sort of develop a whole story for their character, so if you're into that sort of thing and you feel like that would help you to get the depth that you need, often you will get a scene which just has no context. So if you're interested in doing something like that, think about where they've come from, the scene before, where they're going, what's on their mind, how old are they, what's their favourite colour, what's their favourite food, all just stuff like that so you can get in the mindset of your character. Just be calm, be collected as soon as you get it. Once again, the positive mindset. The night before your audition, get a good night's sleep, eat well, drink lots of water, stay calm. That is the best thing I can recommend. I know it's really easier said than done. Breathe and remember that they are people too. And also make notes on your script if you are allowed it. If you have anything that you would like to remember, like how to deliver a particular line, write that next to it on the script. Should you do A-levels even if you want to be an actor? Your opinion. If you don't know, I'm in 6th form and I currently do A-levels. I will always recommend to people to make sure, even if you definitely want to be an actor, try and have something else that is a backup in case you're not successful, because it does happen. Now that doesn't have to be academics or A-levels. I know that a lot of people who are into acting just aren't academic people, and that's totally fine. Find something that you do like and you could do a BTEC in it, you could go to college. Personally, I'm quite an academic person. I absolutely love academia anyway, so that's why I chose to go down the A-level route. I think it's really important to have something that's not just acting that you can use as a backup if you need to get another job, because chances are you will anyway while you're auditioning. If you want to go to uni, think about that. If you want to go to drama school, I want to go to uni, get a qualification, and then it's out of the way, and then I've got it as a backup in case my acting fails.